Usually when people say that they miss someone, it's often really what they're missing is how little effort it took to exist around them. Good morning, and welcome back to the show. This is the Sage Sorority Podcast, and I'm your host, Chantel Russo. How are we all doing, guys? Happy Thursday. It is officially mid-December. Christmas is around the corner. How are we all feeling? I'm feeling good. A little sluggish today. I'm definitely feeling the pinch. I'm traveling on Friday, and the pre-travel run-up is always super intense, whether it's Christmas or not. So I'm definitely feeling it. I'm trying to get everything done so that at least when I'm on the plane, pretty much the bulk of UK time on Friday, I'm not stressed or having to check my phone and make sure I'm in Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? So if you cannot relate, bless you. And if you do, just know that I'm with you, and that hustle and bustle in the airport, I will also be doing with you very, very soon. So before we get into today's episode, please make sure to rate and review the show, subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, leave us a comment on Spotify, and show us a little bit of love on Instagram. Share the show with a friend. Say that 5 times fast. Share this show with a friend to spread the love so we can continue the Sage Sorority vibes well into 2026 and beyond. So as you can tell by today's title, I've been noticing similar conversations come up either online or in my personal life with close friends, even acquaintances. And I just feel like they are common themes, and 3 distinctly that I wanted to talk about today. Not necessarily heavy ones or very dramatic ones, but more like patterns that I see come up casually, and they tend to really stick with me. They're not necessarily complaints, but they are things that I'm just noticing specifically in my kind of internal, external group of women in their 30s from all different walks of life. So I wanted to share them with you guys to see how we're all feeling about it, if you're noticing this in your world as well, and basically like a brain map, thought map type of process with you, just to kind of figure out what exactly is happening and underneath a lot of the decisions that some of the women are making right now. And maybe you can relate, maybe you can't, but we're all here to learn from each other. So let's dive in. So one thing that I have definitely really noticed is that volume of friends doesn't feel as rewarding in your 30s as it probably did in your 20s and your teens. And I would say that in general, people just have a lower appetite for social expansion. And I think there's a lot of reasons why this happens in your 30s and 40s. Some are very traditional, as in partners, families, and children take up a bigger chunk of your time. Careers are far more developed in your 30s than they are in your 20s. I think those parts and those aspects have not changed. The more modern aspect of that, I think, is definitely our phone. I wholeheartedly believe that we spend too much time on our phone. I don't think anyone would really disagree with that. But one thing I have noticed is that people will know that they spend too much time on their phone and then also don't really move to fix that either. And I think the phone and social media and just the heavy reliance on it really does put us at a disadvantage from a mood and mental health point of view. I would also say that I don't think our desire for connection has lessened, which is the weird thing, right? So although I feel like women aren't super interested in expanding their social lives in the way that maybe we used to be, because I remember being young and seeing my aunts have a regular volleyball tournament that she was part of. They would go out on the weekends. And granted, they were in their late 20s. Neither of them had children at the time. But that consistency, that repetition, that what we do outside of work is hang out with the people that mean the most to us was very common. That was not rare at all across women or men. So I don't think the desire has gone down at all. And I don't think that the women I know or in my periphery are antisocial or necessarily socially withdrawn. I just feel like connection as it stands right now can be perceived as slightly less rewarding. Now, obviously that is very dependent on your personal situation, who you're interacting with, what you're looking to receive, what you're getting, what you're giving. But I think something I've noticed is people don't feel excited to meet new people. And this I find strange. I usually boil it down to being jaded and or bitter. And I don't mean to cloak that person as, oh, that's all you are. But it usually comes from some sort of negative experience in the past. And then it's just like, yeah, I don't really want to meet anyone new. Sometimes it's a capacity thing. It's like, I barely have enough time for the friends that I have now. I can't imagine adding someone new to that. Got it. I understand. But it's just like the desire. Like, I just have no desire to meet new people, which I find really strange. If you are a woman who seeks expansion in your life, you are cutting yourself off at the knees if you don't want to meet new people. Simply put, I will not mince my words about that because that is the truth. There's so much good in your life that can come from meeting new people, being open to new people, and obviously bringing your brain and discernment with you. I can name lots of opportunities and things that have happened to me, or even little things that I have found out about because I have wanted to meet new people. And I can also trace that back to other people being able to benefit by proxy being in my life because I've wanted to meet new people and I've gotten knowledge or experience or exposure to something that then I've been able to share with them. So it is truly the gift that keeps on giving. I think also people are more aware of how long it takes to build a relationship. And I think that we're more aware of that because in your 30s, we don't have the benefit of school and living on res and things like that, where you were essentially putting in that time, those daily reps, those daily deposits, but you didn't have to think about it. It came very easy because it was very low effort. Obviously, that's just not the case. It's different if you live in a walkable city. That's the beauty of that because ideally you have friends in your neighborhood. If you live in a flat or even a building, hopefully you have friends in your building. Maybe you have flatmates. So that built-in community is there and you are able to develop your relationship. Obviously, work, if you are still going to the office, and I shouldn't say still because a lot of people are, but if you're going to the office 3-4 days a week, 5 days a week, ideally, I'm hoping for you that there's at least one person there that you would like to spend time with outside of work. That is a low effort, kind of forced way to build ease and build trust with someone over a long period of time that you don't really have to think about. But if you don't have that, and because I don't have that, it's something that I feel very acutely. So I don't work in an office. I work for myself. I typically work from home. I'm not really a co-working space type of person sometimes, but just depends on the mood that I'm in. So if I want socialization, I have to seek it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't live in a I don't have friends in my neighborhood. I actually never, like briefly for a little bit, and then my friend moved. So that was it. And I love my neighborhood. So it's not that I want to move either, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes it doesn't always line up like that. So it requires a little bit more effort than ease from you. If you don't have those built-in systems, whether that's going to the gym at the same time, at the same place, and also engaging with people, mommy groups that you see, same people, same time, and also engaging. It's not enough to just be there all the time. You also have to get out of your shell and make that effort, or someone does. I would also say a preference for people who already understand your rhythm, your cadence, your tone. As we get older, we get more stuck in our ways. This isn't a woman thing. This isn't a man thing. This is an everyone thing. And again, if your goal is expansion, which I believe every single woman that listens to this podcast has that goal on a variety of levels. Maybe some have it very small and some have it very large. But I think if you listen to my pod, you probably have a little bit of that in you. That just doesn't fly. It can't be, I want to be where I'm at, doing what I'm doing, staying where I'm at. But then I also want something bigger and better or different than what I have. The two just don't work, because they conflict. I truly believe that it's not that people don't want connection. It's that they want it to be easy. They don't really want to put in the effort. And the starting over and over again can be very difficult and draining. And ultimately, I think that leads directly into something related, which is the longing for familiarity, the longing for closeness, the longing for, lack of a better term, because it's very overused, real community, of emotional hug. You know what I mean? Are you missing familiarity more than you miss a specific type of person? So I don't think most women miss specific exes or specific friendships. What they're missing is being known without explanation, shared contacts, a very shorthand way of living life. I always say, like, if a friend is going through a breakup or if I'm going through a breakup or any type of heartbreak, I say it's never the guy. It's always what the guy represents. And I really, really stand on that. I don't know if I've ever said that on the pod before, but it's something that I really believe. It is never the guy. It is always what he, in your mind, represents. To add texture to that, it's not having to explain yourself, someone anticipating your needs, someone knowing your favorite color, your favorite food, the way you like your matcha, extra hot, low foam with a splash of honey. You know what I mean? Someone knowing your default mood, not just your highlights. Someone being able to look at you and be like, what's wrong? You seem off today. You seem blah. The ease of continuity, not having to restart and rejig and re-catch up every time you touch base with somebody. As someone who has, I say, a decently wide network, sometimes that can be a little difficult. And not difficult because it's hard to do, just difficult and it's a bit draining. If I don't see you every 6 months and every 6 months we then have to kick up like, okay, what was going on with this? What was going on with that? Sometimes that's fine because that's what's warranted for the relationship. And sometimes it's like, yeah, it just feels a bit draining. I would like a little bit more momentum in this relationship. Now, not all relationships call for that. And sometimes having a 6-month catch up can be rewarding and fulfilling and exciting. But I feel like if you feel like it's a bit draining, that's something to address, which I talked about in last week's episode. Usually when people say that they miss someone, it's often really what they're missing is how little effort it took to exist around them. Chip by chip, chunk by chunk, your walls come down and you feel very relaxed, the feeling of home, the closeness, and also paired with hopefully some lightness, some humor, some love, some non-judgmentalness, which is not a word, but you know what I mean. I think that is really what people are saying. So when you put those two things together, less appetite for newness, more appreciation for familiarity, it makes sense that our social lives seem to be contracting rather than expanding, even though we have far more tools to connect with far more people across the world and across our neighborhood than ever before. And then this is where dating also comes in because I think dating has absorbed all of this plus something else. A lot of us have excessively optimized our lives. Yes, for some benefits, but definitely for some downsides. And I'm not going to point any fingers because it's an understandable thing, but I do think that we've optimized so much for efficiency and clarity and very specific outcomes, i.e., like equations, like a calculator, like a robot, like AI. We've learned the language and the prompts and the numbers and how much to input and what to expect with the output and attachment styles and boundaries and communication frameworks and red flags and timelines and amber flags. And we know how to protect ourselves. And I get it. Because I live in this world too. I'm on the internet too. I'm reading the books too. Like, I get it. Because if you don't optimize, then you're wasting time. Like, there's something to be said about going and walking to your coffee shop and having a conversation with your barista instead of ordering it to your house. I will say during lockdown, those were the things that literally gave me joy, like getting dressed and going to the coffee shop and sitting there and having my coffee, no takeout, and just talking to the people that work there. I loved it. And I became so close with them. Side note, here's a little side story. There's a specific coffee shop by my house. I'm very fortunate to live near many cafes, and I actually have more now than I did during lockdown. But particularly one I used to go in all the time during lockdown and talk to them and have my coffee. And it was truly like the highlight of my day, honestly. And several months later, this was in 2021, I went with a friend and I was going through some heartbreak at the time. And we were sitting there and we were talking about it. My dear friend who was like, I've got a slam packed day, but I will come by in the morning. We will go to coffee just to like talk, Very grateful for her. I don't think I will ever forget that as long as I live. And we sat outside, we talked, and I just remember tearing up. And one of the women that worked there, you see her all the time, right? And I'm not someone who's overly emotional in public. So I'm sure for her, it was very strange to see me in that state. And I wasn't like hysterical or anything, but my eyes were very clearly red and I was very clearly upset. And when we were leaving, she was like, I just want you to know that it's going to be okay. And no matter what, you deserve to be happy. And I will never forget that for as long as I live. Every time I see her, because she's still there, we make like our highs and hellos. And I don't even know if she remembers that moment, but I will never forget that. Like the kindness of a stranger to not know the full story, but to see me in such an intimate way and to hold space for me without, really knowing anything. And it was so kind and so sweet. And of course she was right? But I'm saying all this to say that the intensity at which we want to be efficient and productive and optimize our life like computers removes beautiful variables like that. That couldn't have happened if my friend had sent me a very warm and kind text message. That couldn't have happened if we decided to stay at my house and order takeaway coffee and takeaway croissant. That couldn't have happened. You know what I mean? Furthermore, that couldn't have happened if I had a friend who lived in another country, unfortunately. Nothing wrong with having friends abroad. I have many and I love them dearly. But again, balance to everything. I was so lucky. This is my friend that lives relatively close to me and she drives. So win-win. It's just for you guys to think about your daily touch points in your life. And yes, I understand we live in capitalism. We live in patriarchy. We live under misogyny. All of those things are ripe and real. You're never going to hear otherwise from me. But are there ways that you can acknowledge those systems and maybe skirt around it, or simply put, take the longer way of doing things just to get a more rewarding result? And rewarding doesn't necessarily mean you're going to feel happy, but you are going to soothe a part of you that ultimately is not a computer. I hope that makes sense. And going back to my original point, especially with dating, again, I do understand why we optimize, but if you don't want to optimize, I understand that you feel like you're wasting time, right? You risk not getting the outcome that you want. And no one wants to feel like they didn't use every tool in the toolkit, specifically when we're talking about dating apps. So I've used dating apps quite a bit. I used them quite a bit in 2020, 2021. You guys know I went on 50 first dates in 12 months. All of those dates were from dating apps. So trust me, I know the system. I know the game. I've played it. I got my participation ribbon. I've done it. And I do understand the feeling of, well, I want to meet someone and it's not 2003 and it's not 1994. So dating apps are a tool in my toolkit. So who am I to not use them? And who am I to ignore that? And am I missing the boat or potentially missing my person or a person? Because I don't really believe in the one, but whatever. By not doing that. You know what I mean? And then the outside noise of, have you considered dating apps? Which is something that I would definitely tell any of my friends, have you considered it? And I've had friends from all across the gamut that exclusively use dating apps, especially like I did at one point, to friends that have never really used it, to people that used to kind of like tease me about it when I first started using it, to have since come around on it. I've seen it all. And I say this to you guys in complete honesty and transparency. I think if I were to be dating right now and I had to go on dating apps, I think I would struggle. I think I really would. It does not matter if it was good 3 years ago or if it's going to be good again in 6 years. Like none of that matters because all you need is one. But I do understand the pressure of feeling like I need to use this because it's there and I want to meet someone. And this is an efficient way to at least meet someone and get on a date because I go out all the time and I'm not meeting anybody. But also this feels very unnatural. All in this to say, it's about optimization, right? That's what we're talking about. And the side effect of that level of optimization is that dating can feel very process oriented, very procedural. Like, no, yes, no, put this into a box, like very much. And it's dicey because again, efficiency, like if I'm not attracted to men that are under 5'7", boom, just filter them out. Simple. What's wrong with that? Someone might say. And the issue is that what's wrong with that is like, sure, maybe you're not, but maybe if you were in a bar and you met a guy that was 5'7", or if he was 5'6.5", and he was really funny and he was really charming and you guys got on, you probably give him your number. And this is what gets really sticky about having things be just a bunch of checked boxes. Now, I'm never going to take up for dating apps because, again, I think that these apps are made with the intention of being addictive. They're not made for you to find your soulmate and then get off the app. I don't believe that. Some of these apps now have like lifetime memberships. It's like, why would you ever need that for a dating app? You know why that's a good idea to have on a dating app? Because I would love to know if a man has that, because then I would never speak to him, because I can't even think of a bigger ick. Like, why would you, first of all, ever pay that kind of money? And two, like, why would you need that? That's like such an ick. Anyways, it's not the point of the episode. When something like your dating life becomes so process oriented and very procedural, conversations feel familiar. It feels like everything's the same. You're literally copying and pasting the same results. Pacing feels very predetermined. There's so much less space for surprise and whimsy and fun. And there's often like a quiet rush to get to that final destination, to get to the date, to get to the second date, to get to the kiss, to get to the hookup, to get to boyfriend and girlfriend. Like, it's just like a rush. Now, I will say that's not a dating app thing. I think that that's always been a thing, especially with women looking to settle down, because the rush to the ring is very real, very, very real. And if you know, you know, and I'm sure some women listening to the episode are like, yeah, that's always been real. The rush to the clarity and the commitment and the decision. And in doing that, you ruin so much of the serendipity that you deserve to have in dating. It just gets squeezed out. And I'm not saying specifically that that's wrong. As you can tell, this episode is very open-ended. I think it's a rational response to modern dating, but it does really change like how we feel about each other. And if you already have less appetite for new people and you're already missing familiarity, and then dating feels like an operating system rather than a genuine experience, it's going to make sense that all motivation is going to drop, even if your hope hasn't, even if your longing hasn't, even if your desire for love and closeness and building something of your own, i.e. family, hasn't. And I don't think any of this necessarily means that something is broken or we are broken. I think it just means people are maybe too heavily recalibrating how much effort they're willing to spend for the results that they want, where they want ease, and what actually feels like it's worth it now. And I say all this to say you don't have to act on any of this immediately. Being able to name things is actually so powerful. And if you've gone to therapy, that is something that most therapists will say, like just being able to name how you feel, just being able to say out loud what is happening is often like a large step, the first step, or sometimes just enough. Sometimes clarity comes from just noticing your own patterns and not necessarily like forcing new decisions. So here's what I want you to sit with. We're all walking around saying we want more, right? More connection, more depth, more love, more life, more community, et cetera, while actively building walls that keep those very things out, consciously or unconsciously. And I will also add that most people are not doing that maliciously. We're doing it because maybe we're tired, maybe we've been hurt, maybe because optimization promised us efficiency and instead gave us a ton of isolation with a much prettier packaging. And if that wasn't uncomfortable, here's the uncomfortable part. If you genuinely want expansion in your life, and I mean genuinely, not just an idea you like or a caption you want to post, then at some point you're going to have to reconcile the gap between what you say you want and what you're actually willing to do to get it, while also accepting the risk that you might not get it. Because wanting ease and wanting growth are not the same thing. And most of the time, my dear sister in Christ, they directly conflict. I'm not saying you need to fix this tomorrow. I'm not saying you need to delete your dating apps. I'm not saying you need to force yourself to be a social butterfly or suddenly be okay with all the discomfort in the world. But what I am saying is you have to notice. You have to notice where you're closing doors while complaining that there's no one walking through them. You have to notice where you're craving familiarity and closeness so deeply that you've stopped making space for anything new to even become familiar in the first place. Because the women I know who feel the most alive, the most connected, the most expansive, they're not the ones who figured out how to optimize their way into a perfect little box of a life. They're the ones who've gotten comfortable with a little bit of mess, a little bit of unknown, and a little bit or sometimes a lot of effort that doesn't always guarantee an immediate return. I hope this lands somewhere with you today, and I hope it gives you a little bit of a nugget to think about for the next few days until we talk next week. I love you guys so much. As you know, I will be here same time, same place next week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.